It is Thursday, January 10th, 2019. I am Joe Lanza, and I am here with your Thursday TV reviews. That means 205 Live. That means NXT. And of course, that means hopefully the final week of back-to-back episodes of NXT UK as we head towards this Saturday and NXT UK Takeover Blackpool. I think that's the official name of the show. The very wordy and awkward, NXT UK Takeover Blackpool, which is the official name of the event this Saturday, the first takeover event for the NXT UK brand. And I have to tell you, after watching all of this television and reviewing every single episode, they're coming into that show kind of cold. I don't feel any buzz. There's no palpable feeling of excitement in the air among wrestling fans, at least not in the bubble that I occupy. I sent out a couple of tweets in the wee hours of the morning this morning as I was watching the go-home shows, noting the lack of buzz. Overwhelming response to those tweets from several different corners of fandom, basically agreeing with those sentiments that it just doesn't seem like people are excited. I've gotten a lot of different feedback from people as to why they don't seem to be personally excited about NXT UK or the takeover that's coming up. Because on paper, it's really not a bad show when you look at on paper. I think Jordan Devlin, Travis Banks is going to be an excellent match and has a very good chance to be the match of the night. Although you can never count out Pete Dunne. Although I'm not so hot on his opponent. But I think Devlin and Banks could be the match of the night. You look at Mastiff and Eddie Dennis, I think it's a very well-built match. No disqualification, so they'll have plenty of shortcuts to lean on. I think that can be very good. Rhea Ripley, Toni Storm, I think that has a chance to be very good. In fact, I'm pretty confident that that's going to be good. Mustache Mountain versus the Grizzled Young Vets. Again, you can't count out Mustache Mountain to have a good match. And then there's Pete Dunne versus Joe Coffey for the title. I have some thoughts, some expanded thoughts on that as we move along. I don't think the Joe Coffey thing has worked. I'll explain a bit later. But I can't count out Pete Dunne. I think this is going to be, at minimum, a good show. And I think the ceiling is excellent show. With that said, there's no buzz for this. And people aren't excited about it. And I really think the reason, well, there's several reasons. Number one, I think at least for the super hardcore fan, which is a space and a bubble that I occupy, so that's really, might be influencing why I feel like the show doesn't have a ton of buzz, although I don't think it has a ton of buzz outside of that bubble either. But within the hardcore bubble, the hardcore UK wrestling fan, the target, focused target of the brand and this show, I think it lost a lot of goodwill and a lot of people soured on it when the new WWE UK contracts were rolled out with the restrictions and the indie promotions had to, pull people from dates and change the way that they're using the WWE contracted talent. I think that took a lot of juice out of WWE UK, whatever juice was there, and it left a bad taste in the hardcore fan. It's hard for the hardcore fan to really rally around this show and rally around the brand when they have so many bad feelings around what it took to put together this show and this brand and what it's taking away from them as hardcore fans. So I think that does have something to do with it. There's other reasons too. I think the back-to-back television every week, because for whatever reason, and listen, that's on WWE. For whatever reason, they botched the rollout of this. They didn't start it soon enough. They had to play catch-up. They had way too much in the can and not enough time to the takeover date. I don't know if the takeover date may have been originally been planned for further out. But you've got all of this television. They're doing 2 episodes at once. If you want to keep up with this show, it's an absolute slog to do so, because you have to watch 2 episodes every week. On top of if you follow Raw and SmackDown and 205 Live and NXT and fucking Mixed Match Challenge. Or look, if you're a WWE fan, this is now 2 more hours on your plate. Let alone if you watch and follow other promotions around the world. So it really is been a hard show to keep up with, because You watch an hour show and you got another one. And if you miss a week, like Rich talks about this all the time, he doesn't. This WWE UK is not high on his priority list of television shows, so he might watch it a couple weeks in a row, then miss a couple weeks. Well, you turn around, if you've missed a couple weeks, you've got 6 episodes to watch. I mean, who has time to go back and watch 6 hours of wrestling on a brand that might be your 9th priority in terms of what you're following? I mean, it's been difficult to follow from that perspective too. And on top of that, it'd be a little easier if the TV was fucking awesome. The TV is not fucking awesome. You hear me come on here every week and review it. I like it. I like the show. I like certain aspects of the show. But you've heard my reviews. Okay? I don't think it's some super exciting must-see show. I'm not shouting from the rooftops, everyone go watch it. Oh my God, you're missing out on WWE NXT UK. It's not the truth. Oftentimes, they have a very good main event. A couple of times, they've had killer main events. Sometimes, they have nothing main events. There's been 2 or 3 episodes that were dreadful. But overall, for the most part, what you're getting with an hour of WWE NXT UK, this is so wordy and mouthy. What you're getting with NXT UK, for the most part, is a perfectly competent, well-booked, wrestling show that's fine. It rarely knocks your socks off. It's rarely... I don't think they've ever had an episode where they absolutely knocked it out of the park, where I had to tell people, you have to go watch it this week. They've had a couple that were very good. But the show is just fine. There's no... I mean, you look at British Strong Style, those 3 guys, Rhea Ripley, Devlin, to me, Tony Storm, I'll throw her in the mix. Outside of that core group, there's really not a lot of juice on the show. I'll throw Zach Gibson in there. Okay. Outside of that core group of about a half a dozen talents, Eddie Dennis's promos, I'll throw that in there. Okay. Outside of that core group of about a half a dozen talents, you want to throw Mark Andrews in, I'll give you him. There's not a ton of juice on the show. And we talk about it, we joke about it. I even made up a fake title for it. It's like an endless stream of Jags walking across the screen. We've got a lot of new subscribers. A Jag is a sports term for just a guy. Roster filler. Replacement level. They're there, but they're really not there. They're there, but if they disappeared tomorrow, you wouldn't notice. That's a Jag. Bobby Roode is a Jag. And for a comparison point, and half of the NXT UK roster are Jags. It's just an endless stream of Dan Maloney's. And Kenny Williams and Amir Jordans and Joe Connors. I mean, these guys are just, they're non-entities. They're the creative player base avatar when you fire up a video game. That's what Joe Connors is. And this roster's loaded with Dan Maloney's and Joe Connors. We joke about it. We created a fictional title to add some juice to this damn show, which, by the way, we've got a Jag Championship match to do in these reviews. As the Jag in a mask, Ligero, challenged the Jag champion Joe Connors this week on episode 2. And I don't think, and we'll talk about this on the flagship too, hopefully. We got a lot to get to on the flagship. I don't think the plan to build Joe Coffey for the title match, I think just didn't work out. It was well built. They did all the right things from a booking perspective, but it's hard to get excited about Joe Coffey, Mark Coffey, and Wolfgang as your top heel unit. It's just hard to get excited about them. And I think what happened with NXT UK is very similar to what happened with Lucha Underground Season 1. When you have so much footage in the can already, When you have so much in the can already, you can't predict what's going to catch on. And if you remember on Lucha Underground, Season 1, the hottest act on that show was Pentagon Jr. The problem was everything was taped already, and the booking could not react to the fans because it was already set in stone. So Pentagon Jr. wasn't featured very heavily on Season 1. He was breaking people's arms and breaking jobbers' arms, but he really wasn't a guy who was pushed super hard. They did not foresee Pentagon Jr. catching on. That's how pro wrestling works. People catch on all the time. You don't expect them to catch on. People who you push don't catch on. That's how it goes. NXT UK, I see a lot of similarities with NXT UK with Joe Coffey in that they pushed this guy and it just never caught on. No one's excited about Joe Coffey versus Pete Dunne. Jordan Devlin, in this analogy, is Pentagon Jr. Jordan Devlin is the guy who kills it on TV every week, has great promos, has the best matches on TV week in, week out. Okay? And honestly, I thought when the show started that we were building towards a Joe Coffey title match on TV and that Pete Dunne would be facing someone else on the eventual takeover. I don't read spoilers because I like to come into these reviews blind for, that's just the way I approach them. That's my personal philosophy. I think it's better for the listener. But it's like, I thought Coffey would get the TV challenge, and I thought we'd build towards someone else. And if NXT UK was a live show, if week in, week out basis are taped a couple days ahead of time or done in real time, I think they may have changed course and gone with Devlin as the title challenge at TakeOver because he's the hottest heel right now in the company, not Joe Coffey. No one's particularly excited about Joe Coffey. He's okay. Gallus has done a decent job. But this was the perils of taping so far ahead. Jordan Devlin is Pentagon Jr. And Joe Coffey is Sexy Star. In this ridiculous analogy. And now they have a chance to correct with the next set of tapings. And we'll see what happens and what direction they go in. I hope to God Coffey doesn't win the title. He shouldn't. Pete Dunne is coming up on 600 days. I love long title reigns. I love long title reigns. Especially if they're working. Well, nobody loves long title reigns that aren't working. But I love long title reigns, especially when they're working very well. And I think the Pete Dunne reign is working very well. He always delivers in every match. He's the most over guy on the brand. And he shouldn't lose here. Because he's got a bunch of dudes I'd like to see him have a program with. Starting with Devlin. Eddie Dennis would be great. I mean, there's a lot of different places you can go in terms of fresh stuff for Pete Dunne. I know he had a match with Zach Gibson already, but you could do Zach Gibson. I don't know what direction they're going with that tag team. But, I don't think Coffey should win. And I think, this was the perils of taping ahead when it comes to Coffey. He didn't get over like they expected him to. So, I think you've got a very bland and mediocre challenger for the title. I think you've got a show that's very hard to get through with the 2 episodes per week. We have a show that's just simply not very exciting on a week in, week out basis. And we have, in the middle of the run, all of these, it's bad PR. The show has a ton of bad PR from the new restrictions that were put on talent. And it's very off-putting to the scene, to fans of the scene. So when you combine all of those things, I don't know. We're heading into Saturday and a show that, to me, just doesn't have a lot of juice, and nobody seems to be talking about it.